YouTube.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thanks a lot, Bongani Mthembu from the South Durban Environmental Community Alliance. I'm always unsure whether it's the Community Environmental Alliance or the Environmental Community Alliance.
You actually said it right the first time. Yeah, it's South Durban Community Environmental Alliance. Yeah.
Okay, because I checked it up on the internet, and in some places it's different. But then I heard you say in a previous interview. Yeah, but just to give you a little bit of background, and to people who might be in on Facebook, is that this is a part of a project that's supported by the Global Green Grants Fund, where it's basically working towards a report detailing some of the environmental problems that civil society are dealing with, some of the actions that civil society take. What is successful, what's the obstacles, where's the opportunities. But of course, it's also a nice opportunity for me to reconnect or to connect with different civil society activists such as yourself. Let me just add this person onto our discussion. And welcome, Desmond. Nice that you are here. And of course, anybody that's in on this conversation are welcome at any time to also, comment or ask questions. Yeah, so it's like I say, it's also a good opportunity for us to reconnect and to get to know the activists a little bit better, So I would want to start by asking you about yourself, where you were born, where you were raised, where you went to, what education did you have, and how did you end up becoming an environmental activist? That would be interesting. So please, Bongani, again, thank you very much. You can introduce yourself again and then just to comment on those issues. Thanks.
Yeah, no, thanks very much, Comrade Philip. Much appreciated. As you rightfully said, my name is Bongani Mthembu. I work for the South Durban Community Environmental Alliance. It's an environmental justice and human rights organization that I think now we about 26, if not 27 years of existence. I joined around about 2008 May. So I'm part of the furniture of the organization now. Yeah. Wow. So basically I grew up in Umlazi, Durban, and then moved to Folweni. It's more of a rural area, and my mom. And my mom. She's an asthmatic to date, and basically what actually interested me in the environmental justice work is because my mom, she's an asthmatic. She grew up in Clarewood. Clarewood is another community that is well known for its different, race, different race staying together in one harmony in Clarewood. But previously it was predominantly an Indian area. Then different race also came in, black folks, the white folks, the colored folks, and everyone was living in one harmony. And it's a sad reality. The very same community we're talking about now has been, destroyed by the trucking industry, the trucking mafia. What they've done is there's a lot of illegal truck, parking in the residential area, truck owners buying properties there. And, there's a lot of dodgy activities happening there. So basically that unity of different races has been just destroyed. Yeah, so my mom, she's an asthmatic. She grew up in Clarewood, but her parents and my mom, they were product of forced removal from Katomeno, where also there was different race. And then, growing up and not understanding, before they moved, I think they stayed in Clarewood. She was about 6 years of age. And then they stayed there until my mom, I think for 2 decades, my mom, I think they were residing in Clearwood. And then when they moved to Umlazi, the township, when the township of Umlazi was established, my mom already had asthma, you know, and growing up, you know, when we were born, you know, I'm the third born son from my mom and my dad. And then we were growing up, we never understood why my mom would be doing house chores. And then immediately she can't do anything. She'll be suffocating. She can't breathe. She's making a sign, you know, of us getting her spray, you know, asthma pump, you know, and then we'll be running, you know, inside the house, getting an asthma pump and giving it to her. And then she'll pump and then she'll come all right, you know. So basically we lived around that environment, but not understanding we're still kids, you know. We're not even curious to understand what was the reason for that. And then I think I was in grade 11 or 12, I'm not sure, when I started asking my mom, tell me, mom, what is happening? What was wrong with you when you were, you know, when we were in Mlazi, you used to have these asthma attacks? What was happening? Because at that time, we were no more staying in Mlazi, now we're staying in Folweni. And my mom then started explaining, you know, to say, you know, when she was growing up in Clearwood, basically there was small companies operating, you know, in someone's backyard, you know, someone's, you know, cooking or mixing different chemicals. And then basically the whole community would be exposed to such chemicals, you know, and then that's how she and others as well actually then had asthma, because there was no history of asthma in the family. You know, and then, you know, that set with me, and it gave me interest to understand more about the health and, you know, all these industries that are affecting the communities. And then from there, you know, SETSI and other community groups were organizing for a lecture at UKZN, where different, you know, different communities, you know, from Mlazi, Wentworth, Miapeng, Phoenix, Inanda, and all over, they will meet at UKZN University. And then basically it was a community WELP lecture. It was called the Dennis Brutus WELP lectures. And then, you know, then I was the organizer for Mlazi Township, because there was no one organizing there. And my mom, she was organizing for Folweni community. And basically then I met up with Mr. Disa, and then, you know, I was interested in the work that they did. And then fortunately, you know, I already had environmental interest in me. And then, you know, there was a post that came out, and then I joined the organization. And then from there, you know, there have been opportunities of studying as well, you know, geography, information system, GIS, and other short courses of environment as well. And the wealth of knowledge, you know, sharing an office with someone that has been there, you know, for quite a long time, Dr. Disa. So that's on its own, because I believe at one stage we shared an office where before we had a bigger office. Now we have a very quite, you know, nice and I would say a sufficient office for the office staff. But before we had a small office where everyone was cramped, you know, sharing offices. But, you know, by me sharing an office with him, I learned a lot from him, you know, in terms of really being a true activist, you know. Yeah, maybe I can stop there. Sorry for being long. Yeah.
No. You're welcome to take all the time that you need, and that it's a really interesting bit of background. So, how old were you then when you started representing your community as an activist?
Yeah, good question. I was around about 20, 22, 23, around there, I think, yeah. Okay. Around there, that was around 22, 23 years of age. And then, you know, interacting with different other community people, and then getting to know them, also getting to understand other environmental and human rights impacts in other communities as well. For me, it was an eye-opener, because, you know, sometimes you need to meet up with different group of people to understand, you know, the challenges that people are facing in their own within their own communities. And that, to me, it was a good exposure as well. You know, that was before I worked for SETI. But when I worked for SETI, you know, I think it was an opportunity for me to actually even
sorry, Bongani, you just disappeared there for
different platforms with academias, with civil society, with community activists. To me, that alone has actually opened my mind, has actually made me gain a wealth of knowledge as well. You know, yeah.
Well, it's well, interesting and in a way, you know, we say in Afrikaans, geluk by die ongeluk, good luck with the bad luck. That your mom and her being, you know, asthmatic, actually, you know, motivated you to become move into this direction. And I just want to ask, how is your mom at the moment?
You know, it's Comrade Philip, it's very, you know, by God's grace, she's still asthmatic, but I think the very last time I actually saw her using a pump, it's been more than, I would say, probably, maybe it's been more than 15 years, you know, if not maybe, yeah, more years. Yeah. So she hasn't used a pump for quite a long time, you know, of which, you know, she has moved away from that toxic environment, you know, having to move from Clearwood, moving to Umlazi, and then Umlazi to Folweni. That alone has actually made my mom, you know, sort of like asthma attacks really not, I wouldn't say disappear, but made it very, you know, minimum. Yeah. I haven't seen her using a pump, for a long time.
That shows you just how important your physical environment actually is, you know, and you feel for the people that are not able to move away because of many different circumstances, and having to continue to breathe that air and thus be compromised, you know. And I think it's great that you and your organization SETI has been doing such sterling work into raising awareness about the various issues, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. But I want to identify a couple of what you would reckon is the main environmental impacts in your community. And when I say your community, it can be, you know, the people in South Durban. It could be the broader community that you represent, because obviously you represent many people all across Southern Africa. What would you say are the main environmental impacts in your region?
Yeah, you said it quite right in terms that, you know, SETI actually represents a broader community, because we share a wealth of knowledge with even other small organizations or other communities, as far as in Sasolburg, in Secunda, you know, and other communities as well. So we go out there and we also train them. So basically, I would say maybe if I were to look at South Durban in particular, you know, this issue of health impacts and the environment, it's bigger than one can ever think of. You know, I grew up in Umlazi, but for me, you know, looking at, for example, Mondi and Sapref, because when you're traveling on the M4 freeway, one of the biggest freeway, it's either you coming from the south, you're going to town. You know, I never understood, you know, as to what are the environmental and health impact that these big corporations are causing to the communities, until I actually worked for SETI. You know, so me working for SETI, it was an eye-opener to look at the bigger picture. To say, when you look at a company, you don't only look at the economical side of it only, but you also look at the environmental and health impact that it also causes into the community, as well as the environment. Most of the communities in the South Durban area, you know, I was feeling sorry for my mom. But when I worked for SETI, I got to understand that, you know what, my mom, she's an elderly person. There are kids that are 1 year of age, 1 year old, 5 years, you know, 15 years of age. They're asthmatic. they suffer from asthma and other related illnesses, innocent children. But it's so unfortunate because the environment that they grow up in, or the environment that they are currently in, they are exposed to these kind of toxins that are emanating from these industries. And these toxins, for example, if I were to just maybe name one, benzene, for example. Benzene, it's a carcinogen. And it emanates from industries, petrochemical industries, such as your engine, your Shell and BP Supref. And imagine communities of Wentworth, Merebank. I'll just mention those two communities as the fence line communities. They are exposed 24/7 to benzene, H2S, VOCs. VOCs is a host of different chemicals. Benzene is also form part of that, pollutant family. And this it's totally unfair because, unfortunately, there's a huge lack of political will to ensure that industries are held accountable, because industries, they need to abide by scheduled trade permits. They need to be monitored on a regular basis. And it's so unfortunate because industries currently, such as engine and Supref, they are law to themselves. If these industries are found to be criminal, not abiding to the scheduled trade permits, they are just given a slap on the face. They are given a fine. And you will be shocked because ever since I joined SETI, 2008 May to date, none of these big industries have been given a fine. So that tells you a story that even a fine, it's something that's very rare for these industries to actually get. Usually they're getting away with murder. And one of our core work that we do as SETI is to take air samples, basically doing air monitoring of these pollutants. So sometimes we'll get a call either from a community member. And what's also good about our organization is that we are CBO, community-based organization. Before even a community will call us, we are right there. We can smell these toxins. It's either we are already on the scene, or sometimes depending on the wind direction. If the wind direction or probably maybe is blowing towards our office, we will be smelling these chemicals. And already by the time the community decides to call us, we're already on the scene. We're already taking the evidence, taking the sample, because that evidence alone, it's evidence that we are sharing with everyone. It's public knowledge. We're hosting meetings. And it's so unfortunate because during 2020, we couldn't hold no meetings, nothing. Basically, it was a lockdown, And it's so unfortunate because even the communities, the fence line communities in particular, they were gassed out during the lockdown period because none of us needed to move, especially during level 5 and level 4. So basically, these toxins, they were just invading their space. It's either through the ventilations or through the windows, or whatever the case may be. So communities were not safe even during lockdown because they were just gassed out by these communities. And then fortunately, yes, Philip?
No, please continue, fortunately.
Yeah, there was a stage whereby, of which it was good because then engine had to go on a shutdown, a maintenance shutdown, of which that was sort of like a relief to the fence line communities of Merebank and Wentworth because they didn't experience any, I would say pollutants actually being impacted that's coming from the refineries. And these refineries as well, it's a shocking thing because these refineries, they are so close to each other. And the monitoring system of eThekwini, it is so pathetic in such a way that when there are accidents or when these industries explode, whenever we're looking for data, the data is not available. There will be an excuse coming from the authorities that are actually responsible to oversee these industries. And then we have to rely on the system that we're using as an organization called the bucket system, where we go on site, we use a bucket system, with a very scientific plastic bag called a Tedler bag. It's a bag that you have to buy at a particular lab called DLD Scientific. It's based. They are based in Joburg, and then when we then take the sample, that sample actually goes into the Tedler bag. And then the Tedler bag, then we are able to ship it to the reputable lab. And currently we're using a reputable lab based in Pretoria. And that lab, then we need to inform them as to what they need to analyze for. Example, if we go around and sniff and we feel that, okay, benzene was the problem, H2S, hydrogen sulfide was the problem, or sulfur was the problem, or maybe VOCs, then we need to be specific to them and tell them exactly what they need to analyze for. Because if we say they must do a screen testing, the screen testing is good, it's all well and good, but it's super expensive for us as a non-profit organization, that sometimes we also, having funding constraints. So we cannot do a screen testing as much as we wish to do, but sometimes we need to be specific in order for us not to have a bill of 10,000 or 15,000, just doing one analyzing of one Tedler bag. Yeah, so we need to be very sharp and know exactly. So taking a sample, you need to know what you're analyzing for, Between myself and Des, we're very familiar with this kind of pollutants now. We will know exactly what we're smelling, and then we will know exactly what to request from the lab as to what needs to be analyzed. Yeah. Okay. So it's a bit tricky.
Yeah, but you, because I'm sure your noses have developed this very good sense, So you are very, very valuable as a tester yourself. I think that's extremely valuable, because obviously that then, like you say, it's public information and it becomes part of the data that is so much required and I just want to find out, the municipality also does air quality tests on a regular basis?
Yeah, there are air quality monitoring stations. So it was actually part of the multi-point plan where the governments, academias, as well as the two main organizations, that would be SDECA, especially, that's doing a lot of air quality monitoring with groundwork as well. That's actually pushed for a multi-point plan whereby there will be, the air quality stations placed in particular areas where I would say the wind vector or the most prominent wind direction are actually blowing towards, coming from the industries. And the stations, there are 15 stations. There is one of which it's a mobile station that was recently bought during the 2010 World Cup. So I would presume that was bought early 2010. And then the other physical station are stationed in different locations. And some of these stations are for pollutants, some are for wind direction and wind speed. So those stations that are particular for wind direction are placed in different areas as well. Those who are pollutants, they are also placed in strategic points as well. So what we have seen, we're talking about, 1.5, if not more, 1.5 million rands each station, one station. And these stations were half funded by international group as well as taxpayers' money. The rest was sort of like locally sourced. So one station cost about 1.5 million. And the mobile station was even more than that. It was actually more than that. If I'm not mistaken, it was 2 million plus. Yeah. And the mobile one, it was for capturing the carbon footprints. 2010 World Cup, there's a lot of activities happening, vehicles on the road and this and that. So it was more of the carbon footprints during the World Cup, buzz. Yeah. So these stations, it's a pity because they are so sophisticated equipment, and it's so unfortunate because our municipality has allowed it, you know, to because of lack of political will to ensure this, that these stations are fully fledged, they are fully functional, because they did not have much interest in them. So at one stage, couple of years, the stations were not functional, and couple of them out of the 14 stations, they were not functional. Mm. So currently now, our argument with city officials is that they say all the stations are fully fledged, they are fully functional, but whenever there is a major incident, we cannot receive data. And that is a problem on its own. Oh. So before 2010, we used to receive data, but from 2010 up until early 2019, we couldn't receive any data because the stations were not fully functional. Currently now, the stations are functional to a certain extent, because you can go to a website called SEQUOS, South African Air Quality, and then you can actually see how they function. And the SEQUOS website has all the stations in South Africa, all the stations in the country. So it's a matter of downloading the app and just going into the system, and just basically going into that particular station that you are interested, knowing exactly what are the emissions level in that particular station. Yeah.
Tell me, Bongani, are you maybe your organization has been involved in some baseline studies about health amongst the communities? And maybe you can talk a little bit on that, because I mean, it seems as if it's obvious that people, especially in those frontline communities, are suffering. And a good way to quantify, of course, is to do a proper health impact study. I'm sure you've been involved with. Can you enlighten us, please?
Yeah, that was before my time. There was a health study that was done in 2004, and then it was completed published in 2007. 2004, 2006, 2007. So that health study, basically, it was 2 universities were involved, University of Michigan overseas, as well as UKZN. So what's good about the health study is that it was very inclusive, whereby the academias were part of the health study from UKZN and University of Michigan. From UKZN, the person that was hands-on, it was Professor Rajan Naidu and his team, and then University of Michigan, and then SETI was also involved. Desmond Dissar from SETI was involved. Bobby Peak from Groundwork side was involved, and a host of other, officials from the health department as well. They were also involved. But what's good about the health study was actually it was comparing the South and the North. There were 7 schools. There were 7 schools, if I'm not mistaken, where the health study was mainly looking at. 4 in the South and 3 in the North. North, we're looking at places like Wandengezi and other areas that side in the North, and looking at areas here in the South, looking at Settlers Primary and other primary schools. Why I'm mentioning Settlers Primary in particular, because Settlers Primary, it's so unfortunate because that primary school is situated in Merebank. It's a predominantly an Indian community, but it's also a bit mixed now. The school, it has different race, kids coming from the township. It's either from Umlazi, coming from Lamontville, and then kids coming from, obviously, Merebank, and some are coming from Wentworth. And that school, it's in the wind vector of pollutants coming from engine refinery, So it's so why, and the station, one of the station was placed strategically in the school because the school has had numerous health impacts during the explosions and incidents of engine. So the health study, zoomed in that school, and then it's found out because the health study actually gave reports whereby the asthma rate was 54%, and it broke the Guinness Book of Record. And it was about 3 or 4% in the north, but in the south it was 52%. Sorry, 54% in the south. And that alone was a clear indication that the asthma rate is skyrocketing in the South Durban area. And it's clear because we have two of the biggest oil giants, Engen and Subref, one of the biggest paper mills, also situated within, in a close vicinity with these industries, and a host of other different small chemical industries in the Jacobs industrial belts. We also have the prospecting industrial belts. So these industries, they are contributing enormously in terms of the health impacts of the communities in South Durban. So that health study also had recommendations as to what needs to be done in order to solve the issues, the current problem or the current health situation that these communities are faced with, and it's so unfortunate because you can't decide, you can't wake up one morning and decide that you're packing your bags, you want to sell and leave, and you're taking your family with you. It's so unfortunate because some of these communities, families, they're unemployed, and they're not even getting opportunities from the very same refineries that are polluting them and killing them. It's totally unfair. And most people that are hired in these industries, it's communities from outside. Why is that so? Because to work for an industry, a chemical industry, permanently, you need to go under a medical induction. And in most cases, these communities, they are failing the medical induction, reason being because they've been exposed from, these pollutants, these toxins that are coming from these chimneys for many years. So obviously, it's either a person is suffering from cancer, leukemia, asthma, or any other related illnesses. So they're failing the medical test, and then obviously that's just bury the opportunity of being employed on a permanent basis in these refineries, even if a person is qualified, and it's totally unfair.
Yeah. Are you aware of anybody in the community having taken Engen or BP Subref to task and sort of claiming compensation from them for their health or for their lack of health?
Definitely, there's a number of people that have done that, but it's like a fruitless exercise, taking these industries to task, because you're talking about big giants, they've got the best lawyers in the world that you can think of. If push comes to shove, if they need to fly top lawyers from America or from London, they have the money, So I think even if there are such individuals that have not come to our come to our knowledge, definitely they've seen that it's sort of like a fruitless exercise to take up this giant, because even some law companies, law firms, they see that they stand no chance, in fighting these big giants.
Because I'm thinking, what's to be done? Like you say, the communities they cannot just pack up their bags and go somewhere else, So if you find non-conformities, for instance, if you find that the sulfur levels or the benzene levels is off the scale, what's the recourse? Do you have to go to government, who then have to go to approach big industry? Or do you approach big industry directly? Is it possible for them to turn off, or I'm trying to figure, what is the solution to this? apart from the industry shutting down, you know. And when it comes to refineries, oil refineries, of course, as you know, we as our economies at the moment, you know, it's flawed, but it's so dependent on having access to fuel, you know. And I suppose that's why they get preferential treatment. But what can be done physically to improve the conditions of the people, you know? And I know that your organization, yourself and Desmond, you're working on this all the time, 24/7 in a way. But what is the solution in your mind when it comes to this pollution directly from refineries?
Yeah, no, thanks for that question, Comrade Philip. You know, we always have been campaigning and chanting slogan around the issue of best available technology, because we know that we're asking for something that's there, that's possible. We're not asking for something like that doesn't exist at all. So unfortunately, the industries are not willing to actually put money, you know, and invest in the best available technology in order to reduce or totally do away with emissions. Because we know in their own mother country, you know, in their own mother countries as well. For example, South Africa, which is hosting these industries. So in their own mother country, they're using best available technology, because the laws and bylaws are super strict, you know. So industries are not allowed to pollute, you know, literally nothing. But in our own country, or in developing countries, they do as they please, because even our own government lack the political will to ensure that industries are held accountable, you know. And that on its own, that goes to show that our government themselves, you know, they sort of like selling us down the drain, because they are not, holding our constitution. For example, what I mean by holding our constitution, if you were to look at our section 24A in our constitution, that guarantees everyone has a right to a clean environment that is not harmful to their health and well-being. And it continues. That act alone guarantees a person to say, you have a right to a clean environment. You know, anyone that infringes on that act alone, that person should be punished. But unfortunately, our constitution is highly recommended globally, you know, as a progressive, as a most progressive constitution. But basically, it's there in black and white. It does not mean a thing to communities that are residing next to chemical industries, chemical storage facility, coal mines, you know, in Middleburg, you know, and other communities as well. You know, that act doesn't mean a thing, because if communities were to challenge industries just on that act, it will be a fruitless exercise. Even if a law firm would offer, you know, their services, they will end up, you know, saying, guys, we have to drop the ball. Unfortunately, we cannot push any longer, because, you know, industries can deal it dwelly and they can drag the cases for years. And unfortunately, even our government is very weak in terms of ensuring that industries comply. So that is a big problem, because technology is there, but the will to implement or to force industries to comply, that's another story, because it does not happen. Yeah. It just does not happen at all. So it's a problem.
Yeah, but I'm thinking that obviously best practice technology should be implemented. It's a pity that our government, like you say, you know, it's not a high priority to enforce, you know, the best available technology. But I'm still, you know, wondering whether even if they do employ the best technology available, is it possible for a community to live right next to a big oil refinery without bearing the brunt of those health impacts? I'm thinking, for example, like similar to some of the issues that we've spoken to in the past about the mine dumps in Johannesburg and other areas, you know, where people are living amongst those toxic mine dumps, you know, 24/7. And what is the solution, you know, because it seems
Yeah.
as if it's such a major challenge. I've spoken
Yeah.
in a previous interview with Mariette Liefering from the Federation for a Sustainable Environment, and they also involved with these toxic tours, which I see the organization's also been involved with. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Basically, SETI is famously known for toxic tours. We've done toxic tours for a number of years. You know, basically, you know, the toxic tours. It's an educational awareness tours where we take people around. You know, we give them the history of these industries. We give them the history of the community itself. You know, so basically, it's an awareness toxic tours, and we've done it with a number of groupings, church organizations, high schools, universities, even overseas universities as well. There's a number. In fact, we do a lot of international toxic tours with different groupings from overseas, especially overseas. I mean, universities like Duke Engage in North Carolina. South Carolina, and then a number of other in Canada, a number of other universities in Canada as well, and different groupings as well, you know. And we've always, made ourselves available for local groupings, you know, anyone that wants to do or wants to know more about industrial pollution or the history of South Durban, especially looking at the industrial impact, you know, and people are coming, people are approaching us. We're doing those awareness, and people are gaining that, that wealth of knowledge to understand exactly, you know, the coexistence of industries and communities that unfortunately it's not favorable for the communities, you know, because the question that you just asked now, Comrade Philip, the issue of can industries and community, you know, coexist? You know, that is a very a good question, but it's so unfortunate because currently, you know, looking at the situation of industries, maximizing profits at all costs, and basically for them is profits, you know, and then they don't even consider human health. That cannot happen, you know. For example, if I was to just make a typical example with Engine is currently situated or built in a residential area. So where Engine is currently it's a residential area. They tried lobbying government for the past couple of decades to change where they currently are to be zoned as industrial area. We fought them tooth and nail, and they failed dismally because we even told government that they cannot allow that, because once they allow Engine to that area to be zoned as industrial, it means Engine will pollute as they please. Currently, they are polluting, but they know that we're there, we're watching them, you know, we're exposing them, we'll hold them accountable. So they cannot do as much as they are willing to do, you know, just do as they please, you know. So communities definitely, they're finding it difficult to coexist with refineries that maximize profits at all costs, because that's compromising their health. Imagine, Philip, you know, a parent that just gave birth to a small fetus coming to Merebank or Wentworth for that matter, with a small baby, maybe a three days or 5 days old baby, having to breathe those kind of toxins. It's not humane. And it's so unfortunate because the very same parent cannot go anywhere else. There's nowhere else that the parent can go and raise their child, because it's either they stay there, they've been staying there for years, and they just have no option.
Yeah.
Now, that very same child that's growing in that environment, these industries, they're reducing the lifespan of that particular individual. And it's totally unacceptable, and it's totally unfair.
Yeah.
And it's just not working out. It's not working out.
No. I think
people have lost hope in our development system.
But I think that awareness raising that you guys are at SETS is involved with is incredibly important, you know, because people, they need to make decisions about their lives and their livelihoods, but they cannot make informed decisions if they do not have access to proper information. You know, that's why it's so absolutely critically important. Other work that you involved with, for example, the cancer support group, which I think is a great initiative. And I would like to ask about how's the progress of that specific project.
Yeah, no, it's working exceptionally well, Philip, because what we have done as SETS is that we do not claim to be jack of all trades. What we do is we work with other people that specialize, for example, in that particular field. Example, the issue of cancer in terms of making the cancer awareness. We as SETS might know to say, okay, these are the kind of pollutants that actually lead to cancer, or these are symptoms and whatever. But we also work with Cancer South Africa. You know, we would always have someone present from Cancer Association to come and present, to come and educate, you know. And we also then, our main objective as SETS is to say, you know what, we want the cancer victims to be able to be organized. And we as SETS will play a background support system whenever they need to meet, whenever they need to have urgent meetings. We're there. We can always, organize venues for them, organize refreshments for them. You know, make they meeting, more active or more fun, in the sense that it's not a problem for them to meet, because we want to play just that support system, you know, so that they can easily meet and support each other, you know, and speak to each other and so forth. Because we've seen that in most cases, the cancer support groups are crucial, but it's so unfortunate because, the patient, the cancer victims, they're unable to meet, and that there's no platform for them. And as a city as well, we've taken the initiative as well to establish a cancer registry. You know, there is none in KZN, there's none in Durban, in South Durban, but we've taken the initiative to make a cancer registry in order to understand the cancer rate in KZN or in Durban, you know, so that we will work with stats that are visible.
Wow.
You know, so that on its own has actually made us, or it has actually given a clear indication to understand the impact of these industries and the cancer patients as well. Yeah.
Wow. Because obviously a lot of the cancer victims, that cancer is associated to all the toxins that people are breathing or working with through their lives. You work through KZN. You also work with agricultural chemical pollutions.
We work with UKZN, especially Professor Rajan Naidu's departments, as they were part of the health study, you know. And then we also work with subsistence fisher folks, subsistence farmers as well.
I wanted to ask you about that project with the subsistence fisher folk. If you can expand a little bit on that, and what does that involve and entail, and why the need for that project?
Yeah, you know, Des would be the ideal person because he actually is more involved in that. But the subsistence fisher folks, unfortunately, you know, they've been fishing for decades and decades, and then, you know, it was so unfortunate, especially during the 2010 World Cup. They were criminalized. They were called all sorts of names to say they are a threat to our tourists. They should not be in, you know, in the prime fishing spots like your Durban Beach, France, in the piers and so forth. So basically, they were chased out. And as far as we're concerned, you know, fishing it's a tourist attraction, you know, and but unfortunately, the city of eThekwini did not see the way we see things, you know. So unfortunately, the fisher folks, they were bullied, you know, by Ezemvelo, security guards, you know, from eThekwini. Their fishing rods were taken away from them. They were arrested, you know, and basically a host of unhumane things were happening to them. And we talk about legal fisher folks, you know, permit holders. They carry permits. They've got permits. They are paying for their permits, you know, but they were treated badly by our city officials. And then we had to fight with the city in such a way that there was a time where there were court cases involved as well. I think Des will actually recall probably the years and the dates of those court cases where the municipality, you know, they lost those cases. They had to release fisher folks that they have arrested, and they had to also allow them to fish in the prime fishing spots, where apparently the city during the 2010 World Cup, they were saying they were cleaning the city, you know. So excuse me, they were cleaning the city. There's a lot of even shack dwellers as well that they had to relocate from wherever, you know, they were staying. For example, there's a section at D section in Umlazi, where I grew up, where a particular area of shack dwellers, they were forcibly removed from that area and they were thrown at another section on Umlazi, at T section and they were built transit camps on top of graveyards, old graveyards. And it was totally inhumane. And some of these shacks, you know, it was shacks, but some of the people that were staying within those areas, you know, after, you know, they've worked so hard, they've built proper brick buildings. And it was so unfortunate because during 2020 to 2009, building up for 2010, the properties were destroyed. Not only the shacks, but even the proper brick structures. You know, people...
Would the people receive some compensation for that?
No compensation whatsoever. We tried assisting those communities with a lecturer at UKZN then, but she's no more there, Lisa Ramsey. You know, we tried assisting those communities, especially in particular the ones that had proper brick structures, you know, because their case was more stronger. And basically it was a pillar from pillar to post, and it was a fruitless exercise. You know, the municipality of eThekwini didn't budge. And yeah, it was so unfair, you know, and because one of the you know, the brick property homes owner, it's a lady. She was a widow with 5 kids and about 3, if not 4 grandkids. From that day when they demolished and destroyed her house, it was a 6-bedroom house. She worked very hard, and her husband died, and then it was a person that also worked very hard for his family. And then he passed away, and then the wife continued to work for her family as well. They built a proper home, and then that home was just, you know, demolished, you know, within a couple of hours, you know, because she built it in an area where they were not supposed to build, you know, and so unfortunate because from that day onwards, she suffered from from high blood pressure, you know, and other different, you know, hypertension and other, you know, elderly diseases that they suffer when due to stress, you know. Yeah. So it was a bad experience. 2010 brought joy for many, for the world, but for some as well, it was trauma, because that brings old wounds to them as well, because their properties were destroyed, their livelihood was taken away from them. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's sad, and feel sorry for those people, and we, you know, thankful that there's organizations that try at least to support those people. You know, thinking about, you know, like nowadays with the internet and with social media and stuff, for a person like that, for example, to write their story up, or for somebody to assist to write that story, to put, and to, you know, try some social media, you know, fun gathering, you know, but to support people like that, you know, that's all become possible now with the technology. Like thinking this meeting that we are having with the Zoom, it's being recorded, it's going to be on YouTube, and I mean it's so easy to do that. It's not highly professional, but it's a nice conversation. It's live streamed to Facebook, people, so people can tune in if they want, and it will be there, and they can look at it again. And I mean, obviously, that's also where people really will see it, is on YouTube, and becomes a kind of a library of thoughts and ideas. But the point is, technology now makes this possible, you know. Before we move on, because I want to move on to the timber plantations issue, which I know you've also dealt with in the past through your dealings with Mr. Wally Mena. But I want to ask you something, not personal, but if you can think of your work as an environmental activist, social activist, and your time with SETSI, if you can just think of one day and one incident which really stands out for you as something that you will always remember, be it an achievement or be it a failure, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that one. You know, I'm just like thinking, yo, there's been many,
I'm sure,
many activities there, but maybe that's just one that stands out. I think it's when we had a picket in town. It was round about, I would say, 2014. We had a picket in town in the CBD, Durban Central, where we decided, you know, out of the blue, we were planning this picket. And then we were thinking, how can we exaggerate and make it, you know, eye-catching for the people, you know, coffin. And then we had a you know, quite a big coffin. We decided to put it on top of a private vehicle, not even a bakkie, but just a small. It was a cadet, Opel Cadets, and old Opel Cadets. We put it there. We tied it up, you know, and then we had a big march, you know, from the King Dinizulu statue and Botha statue up there by Christian Center in town, where usually the marches start from, going down to the city hall. And then we proceeded to the city hall, you know, slowly, you know, with that vehicle carrying that coffin, and like people were like, and some of the bigger people protesting, they were carrying placards, you know, saying, you know, pollution kills. You know, our government is allowing big corporation and industries, you know, kill us. Yet Section 24A in our Constitution guarantees us the right to a clean environment and health and well-being. You know, so basically that was stunning and shocking to some people, because some people thought there's you know, a corpse yeah, there's a corpse in that coffin, you know. So they were quite shocked and stunned, you know. Hey,
Yeah.
how can these people, you know, just move in the town with a you know, with
That
a
person on the
car with, yeah.
roof.
And it was a
Especially
black
local.
coffin as well.
Wow. It reminds me of
Crazy.
it reminds me of a story where there was this old lady from Pretoria, but she was old, and all she wanted to do was to go see the Kruger National Park for one more time. So her family, they had a station wagon, but they you know, they loaded the whole family into the station wagon and they went to the Kruger National Park. This many, many years ago. And then there, whilst they were in the Kruger National Park, she passed away. Yes, yeah, and they didn't know where to, you know, obviously they didn't want to put that mortuary there, so they decided they just put her in a tarpaulin and a sail and they put her on the top of the roof and tied her down.
Yeah.
I said, you know, they'll go back to Pretoria. And then on the way back, they stopped there at Hazy View, close to Bushbuck Ridge, to have some coffee or something at a restaurant that was there, something to eat. And when they got out, this vehicle was stolen. So I can just imagine these
with the corpse inside.
Sorry?
With the dead body inside.
Exactly, on top of the roof. Yes, like, you know, I think often about old Wally Mena. He was an inspiration to me and also to you, as I know from that I've seen and heard you talk. But timber plantations, yes, like, you know, right around us we have this big industry, and it is like you've said in the past, it's a factory, you know. It's not a forest, it's a factory. And it has immense impacts on the natural environment, which obviously then affects the social environment, you know. Like in this case recently about now where you know Sapinongotwana, yeah, this big paper and pulp mill, they've now converted to on their main line to produce cellulose. And to produce cellulose, of course, they need eucalyptus fiber. So they've changing some of their plantation compartments from pines to eucalyptus, you know. And at the moment, there's a case in the High Court because the government says that's agrees with us, or we agree with them to say, but that's not allowed. You cannot just convert one-on-one pines or eucalyptus or pines with eucalyptus, because eucalyptus uses much more water. So if you want to plant eucalyptus instead of pines, where you were licensed to plant pines, if you want to plant eucalyptus there, it's possible, but then you have to reduce the area that you plant to compensate for more water being used by the eucalyptus, you know. But of course, the industry is contesting that. And there's this case in the High Court now. What I cannot understand is how they cannot, you know, understand how they cannot understand that they are going to kill this region in a way, where you exert so much pressure in terms of water supply, because that's the main thing that eucalyptus will do, is it will dry us out even more, you know. There's been climate change predictions to say that there will be a 60% decrease in stream flow in this area, in the southern eastern part of South Africa, you know. 60% decrease of stream flow, and we cannot afford that, you know. We're gonna, unfortunately, the plantations are in the higher catchment areas, you know, where there's more water available, and the other thing, of course, it's not like an irrigation farmer where you can the government can tell irrigation farmers to stop irrigating, you know, water, but you cannot do that to the timber. So you can just give us some thoughts on maybe you can speak a little bit about Wally if you want, but then about timber plantations, their impacts, especially around KZN, and then especially linked to the pulp mills in your region.
Yeah, thanks for that, Philip. Yeah, I think you actually introduced it very well. The plantation industry. That's it's an industry that really it's a selfish industry, and it's so unfortunate because even our government themselves, it's like the people that are responsible to oversee these industries. It seems like they lost. They don't understand the actual environmental impact, that it's actually causing. Because it's also escalate to really the water resources, as you rightfully said. And yeah, I would say, Comrade Wali, I've learned a lot from him. May his soul rest in peace. We came to you in Gondwana, and you took good care of us there with your family. We felt at home. Yeah, we really enjoyed being around there. In Botswana, especially myself. So my first time, as much as we came twice, yeah, but the very first time and second time, I always learned something new, being around yourself and Wali, and being around Wali, driving all the way, coming that side to you. Wali would be sharing stories, and he'll be pointing at those factory plantations, and naming them differently, and it was amazing. It was amazing. And he had a wealth of knowledge, when it's come to timber and pulp plantation, and it's so unfortunate because, such people, when they go with a wealth of knowledge. But I do believe that he has left some knowledge with some of us, of which we continue to learn as well. And basically, he was a very genuine person in terms of understanding the industry, doing his research, and especially in the area of doing awareness, in communities, especially in the rural disadvantaged, most disadvantaged and poor communities. He made sure that we get into those communities, share the knowledge, and if language is the barrier, he will always find means and ways of actually addressing those communities, because he felt that he's carrying he's carrying something that he needs to share with the communities, that wealth of knowledge. Yeah. So for me, it was a privilege, working with Wali, especially building up for the World Forestry Congress in 2015. We did a lot of work around 2013 because we already knew that the World Forestry Congress was coming in Durban, in South Africa, Durban in particular, in 2015. So it was a good move. It was also an opportunity for us, to work with other different communities. And you, Comrade Philip, you also came down with other, great leaders as well in this area of plantations, paper and pulp plantations. We had a great. I think it was a mini COP17, if I should say that. Yeah, no. It was a mini COP17 because that allowed us to interact with different individuals, different groups from different communities. We brainstormed around issues, we shared information, awareness was built, and we also stood our ground. The big, I would say, the big. Names or officials, local and overseas, they actually saw or felt our presence during the alternative space, because we created an alternative space between Timber Watch, Timber Watch, SETI, Geosphere, and other organization as well. You know, I think that's people's space, that was very strategic, because that on its own, it was, the media had more interest in the people's space, because there was a corporation and government space at the ICC. And then we decided to have our own people space where people will share knowledge, share information, and basically interact and educate each other. So that's, for me, was the best thing ever, you know, because here in South Durban, we have two of the biggest paper and pulp industry. That is Mondi, Shuduku, and we have Sapi Psycho as well. Sapi Psycho, I would say it's 5 or 6 times, I would say about 5 times bigger than Mondi, you know. And we have been hearing rumors as well that Mondi will relocate somewhere in the north. But you know, sometimes rumors can be rumors. Yeah, they still here in Merebank in South Durban, so they haven't moved as yet. You know, and they have a huge negative impact in terms of air pollution, noise pollution, as well as, you know, there's a lot of trucks, you know, those trucks carrying the logs as well. Those trucks have huge impacts, you know, in terms of causing accidents, destroying our road infrastructure, you know. So it's not only the plantation that's really the plantation or the fact or the companies that have impacts, but even the road, you know, the trucks on the road, they have huge impact on the accidents and incidents and road infrastructure as well. So there's a chain of disadvantage or incidents that are caused by paper and pulp plantations, as well as these plantations. Yeah.
I just also, you reminded me of that fake forest day, I think is what it was called, fake forest. Hearing that COP, where and it's always amazing to me, because I actually earlier watched one of the presentations that you gave during that meeting. It's on YouTube, and it's, you know, with all the different speakers, and it's always amazing to me that, I mean, there were amazing people there from all over the world that came to speak at that fake forest day, and all of them were super well acquainted with Wally, you know. So it was quite interesting to see, you know, the how extensive his network of people really were. And I think it was because he was, you know, engaging with like-minded people, of course. I don't think people who stood on the other side of the fence liked him very much, because he was such a fighter, and he was, and you know, according to us, he spoke the truth, you know. Plantations are not forests. And I like what you said. They're not forests; they're factories. So I want to just talk a little bit about some of the solutions, and we've discussed some of the solutions already in terms of the activism work that you guys are involved with, you know, the awareness raising, the providing support, you know, the gathering of scientific data, you know. All of those things are critical and crucial to understanding of the broader issues, you know. And I would like to talk and just ask you a little bit. I know this is not in your direct, you know, field of expertise, but when you consider energy and our energy consumption in South Africa, and indeed globally, you know, fossil fuel based, and even some of the so-called green alternatives, you know. I understand that 70% of so-called renewable energy globally is from the burning of wood, you know, which is not that green, and it's also not that renewable, you know, because it takes a long time. It takes quick to cut it off and burn it up, but it takes a long time for the tree to grow, and, you know, of course, another complicating issue is the fact that that much of this biomass is derived from plantations, that's specially established for biomass plantations. So it's even more problematic in terms of the trees being spaced closer together, harvested more frequently. It's an incredibly intense exercise. So obviously that is not that's not what we want to see. What do you think is the way forward in terms of providing energy for future generations, even current generations struggling with access to energy? I can just say that from previous discussions, I mean, one of the obvious things that we can do is to learn to live with less, but it'd still be nice to have, we need, in fact, some form of international travel and some form of trade, because otherwise some countries, if you close their borders, they will die, highly developed countries in the north, like Germany, for example, or Sweden, for that matter. Many of these countries, if you close their borders, they are so dependent on imported goods, and even South Africa. All countries, except I understand that Mozambique is very high up on the sustainability factor in a way. If you close Mozambique's border, many people will continue to live the way that because there's still quite a lot of diversified agriculture, people farming. I think that's the main thing people do in Mozambique. Rural people is to farm, and that gives some form of resilience, That's why also these oil and gas explorations and mining now, like in Cabo Delgado, I'm sure you as an organization have been following that issue as well, in Cabo Delgado, with so-called ISIS uprising there, and the terrible atrocities in Palma, But I mean, before there was oil and gas discovered there, and it's always been a troubled region, but it's people are impoverished, and there's so and it's such an intricate and complicated problem, again associated to energy and our need for energy on a global scale. So your thoughts on energy? What's the way forward with regards to energizing our communities?
Yeah. No, that's a very interesting question, Comrade Philip. As you rightfully said, that for sure there are many ways to electrify, energize our communities, and looking at the current energy system that's failing us in terms of environmental impact, health impact, and mostly the communities that are situated next to these coal power stations or these coal mines, and most of them, they don't have energy. They are being impacted by the coal mines, but they don't have energy, or they're impacted by the coal power stations, but they don't have access to energy. So really, from just my observation and looking at the research that has been done in terms of renewables, I think my thoughts and the organization's thoughts has been always centered around looking at your solar energy, looking at your wind, turbine, or whatever the case may be, but looking at more being self-sustained as communities in terms of getting off the grid if it's possible, because that alone, as much as it's so unfortunate, because to many communities on ordinary working class, being or getting out of the grid is not so much it's not possible for many, because when you're looking at the solar panels for you to get your house up and running, literally all the appliances in your house up and running off the grid just by your solar system, you're looking at 100K plus 200, close to 300K. It depends, how big is your house, and who has 150, 200K, waiting to just do that, especially with the high employment rates, in the country. And sometimes there's only one breadwinner, in the house, and they're having to support 5 or 8 family members. Basically, there's no one that's have 100K plus, lying around in their bank accounts, to electrify themselves and get off the grid. As much as it's a good investment, but unfortunately, it's not possible for many. And possibly, for organizations, they can, for example, if you look at your BioWatch, SETC, Groundwork, Geosphere, these organizations probably can raise that money, to say, we want SETC to be off the grid and to be self-sustained. We put solar panels in our roof. That's possible, but it's not possible for the next door neighbor that's basically running a family with 1 or 2 income. It's impossible.
I agree with you fully that if you want to electrify if you want to run your fridge, and you want to be able to boil your kettle, and it's very, very expensive. And unfortunately, I watched that movie by Michael Moore. I think I spoke to you about it. It's called Planet of the People, and it's a very critical look at solar and wind and biomass. Of course, solar, apart from the fact that it's really so expensive that it's not something that like you say, normal people can't do it. But apart from that, it takes mining. Of course, you have to mine a very fine quartz to be able to produce the solar panels. I know that the technology is improving. Similar with the batteries, at the moment, if you want to have batteries that's going to last you 10 years, yes, you're going to pay for it. If you want batteries that's going to last 2 years, then you have to replace them every 2 years. So, it's no, it's not I don't think that's a very viable option unless you go small scale, unless you don't have to, you use a charcoal fridge, for example, which is something that we've been developing here with the charcoal that we've been making, as a small charcoal cooler. Many people used it in the old days, which is basically just a cooler box with the rims made of charcoal, where there can be wind blow through it, and then you just pour a little bit of water on the charcoal, and the whole box inside cools down dramatically. You will not believe how cool it becomes here, because that evaporation process requires heat energy. So inside the box, it becomes cold. Let me just see this.
Wow.
That wants to maybe join us.
I did invite.
So that's a really, really nice option, is to use less electricity, but that's not possible when you come. For example, we need our freight on the rails, not on the roads. We've been talking about the pollution by trucks and the deterioration of our roads. Of course, we should be using rails, and for that we need good electricity, which you're also not going to get from solar panels. And of course, wind generation, those things are also incredibly expensive. I mean, you cannot for a family install a wind generator. And it requires rare earth minerals for the magnets inside generators. So it is problematic. So I've been really interested in this. I know that nuclear has had a bad rap, mostly due to the fact that that the nuclear active, or that the waste is nuclear active, and that it's nuclear radioactive for a very, very long time, and that there's quite a lot of it. But you hear more and more about, this thorium, nuclear generation by using thorium, not uranium, which is much less waste and much less radioactive. It's just interesting for me to think, how do we energize the future if solar and wind doesn't cut it, But fortunately, with today's technology, I mean, that's the one thing about technology, is that it improves and costs a lot, but yeah. Joe, yes, Bongani, let me just check the time. It is now, we've almost run out of time.
There's a guy, there's a gentleman that just joined us now. Unfortunately, that I just sent him the link. I totally slipped my mind. Comrade David Naika, he's from Komaz, so he's one of the guys that's fighting psychogenesis. So
Hi, David. It's nice to see that you've joined, and sorry that you've just joined now, because we've had a really interesting discussion, I think. There's a lot that we can talk about, and a lot that we should have engagements like this more often. I think it's informative, it's educational, and it's just nice to see you and to be in your company again. David, if you want to ask or have a comment or a question, we've just been talking about the energy as a sort of, that's not what we spoke about, pollution. Most of our conversation was about pollution issues and how it affects communities in South Durban. But we've also been talking about timber plantations, and now we're talking a little bit about energy. And maybe, because that's quite a difficult issue. How do we energize the future? Because it seems as if we've become so energy dependent. And from previous conversations that we've had, it seems, many people say we should learn to live with less, like one of Matthews Glabane. I'm sure you know him, Bongani. He's from the Southern African Green Revolutionary Council. And he's been saying, even the way that we build our houses, it should go, at the moment, it's all reliant on mining. The roofs that we have is made from corrugated iron, and so we should go back to the old ways of building indigenous knowledge systems. That's again why it's so important. David, please, if you want to comment quickly or have a question, feel free.
Okay, thanks, Bongs. But unfortunately, you have invited me late on the Zoom. But the thing is, I would like to also put in an input here. Seeing that you are talking about nuclear and power, and the best route to go is renewables. Solar, wind, you can generate power from water. That's clean, healthy, and it's sustainable. We can live off that. Another thing is, when it comes to the forest industry and the forestries, our underground water tables are being destroyed. The most important thing is now, at the present moment, that we are looking at is a sewer pollution that's contaminating all the estuaries, even our harbor. It's sad. Our government, our local government, is doing absolutely nothing about it. That's where we should point the focus on, to try and see if we can bring the ministers to the party and show them the problem areas and get it fixed, or else the looting and the stealing is going to go on and on and on. So basically, these are some of the things that we need to look at. Another thing is, I'm based here. Yesterday, SAPI was knocking us with the venting. Today, it was venting and chemicals in the air. Some of our people couldn't breathe here. Their noses started burning. I've just lodged a complaint. I was sitting with SAPI's meeting today, and I said to them, I reckon one of these days, you'll find me down the roads. They're closing all the streets and see what you guys are going to do about it. So they were begging me not to do that, not to go that route. Craig was crying.
Sure. No, David, it's great that you are there engaging with industry and holding them to task. Just talk about the groundwater use, especially eucalyptus. You know, there's reports where eucalyptus roots have been measured 60 meters into the soil profile. So that's how deep they can actually go and mine soil water. A problem now with these conversions from pines to eucalypts, because as you know, there's a drop in global paper demand, and there's an upsurge in demand for cellulose. So Nongodwana, and I know also in KZN, they're producing cellulose, and for cellulose you need eucalyptus fiber, and eucalyptus of course use more water than pine. So at the moment there's a court case where, because government also says, yeah, when you can convert to eucalyptus, but then you have to plant less area to compensate for water being used. And of course industry says no. They actually have been saying that eucalyptus and pine trees actually use the same amount of water, but they don't even look at the impact on groundwater, you know. And eucalyptus, when you harvest eucalyptus, they coppice, so the root system is intact, and that can happen several times. Whereas with pines, you have to plant them again from seedlings. And then I hear what you say about solar and wind power generation. Like I said to Bongani, I think maybe unfortunately I watched that movie Planet of the Humans, or Planet of the People, by Michael Moore, which is quite a critical look at solar and wind and biomass. But I mean, when you think of like Bongani's been saying, if you want to properly generate power for electricity for your household with solar, it is a very, very costly exercise, hundreds of thousands of rands to do it properly, you know. So that excludes most of our population, which is, you know, in essence unfair. And the other thing, of course, is that to produce solar panels, again, you need a high amount of energy, because you have to melt stuff, you know, quartz crystal need to be mined. The batteries remains a problem. I know that technology could improve it, but still at the moment and also you know, it's intermittent. You can't have solar all the time because you don't have sun all the time, you know. And you know, some industry, not only industry, but you know, hospitals, you know, some people need power all the time, you know. So it is a tricky problem. That was why I'm so interested in this thorium, you know, where instead of using uranium, you use thorium, because there's much less radioactive waste, and it's much less, much shorter lifetime. And another thing, it cannot be weaponized. So when you make nuclear power from thorium, you don't produce plutonium as a byproduct. So it cannot. And I think that's the reason why people are not using that in nuclear power stations. There's benefits to thorium which you hear about, and which I know is controversial, because I speak mainly to other environmental activists, and they always seem surprised when I say, you know, have you heard of thorium nuclear? You know, and it's just interesting, you know, in terms of technology and how things can potentially change in the future. Again, I'm skeptical about solar and wind, and very skeptical about biomass burning, because mostly that involves, again, you know, establishment of timber plantations to produce the raw biomass to go into these burners, you know. Although I am a proponent, and I do like these small-scale gasifiers. In fact, my father-in-law is built one. You put wood in the one side, and the other side comes wood gas that you can connect directly to a small engine which powers a generator, you know. So you're talking small scale and decentralized, you know. That's a way that the communities can benefit. Bongani, I'm sorry, I wanted to ask you also just a little bit about something that David mentioned, is this pollution into the estuaries. Is that something that I know that is something that SETC also works on, because there's comments on Facebook and stuff. But if you can just tell us a little bit about that as a problem in the Durban South or Durban area in generally, KZN generally.
Yeah, it's a huge problem, you know, as much as David can actually elaborate more, because I think in his area down in Nkomazi, it's more, you know, it happens oftenly. But as well, you know, recently, what happened is one of the southern sewage works in Merebank, situated in Merebank, just next to Mondi Shuduku, the paper mill. You know, they've released, you know, that sewer, you know, into the ocean. And it was a huge problem because it then infringed on the subsistence fisher folks that are fishing in the Cuttings Beach. There's an area called the Cuttings Beach where these canals from example, from Engen, from Southern Sewage Works are actually depositing stuff into the ocean. And then obviously those guys that are fishing there, you know, fishing with their rods, then they'll be impacted negatively. Like the last Saturday, you know, there was tons and tons of that toxic, you know, wastewater coming from the southern waste treatment works. Yeah, but in terms of NICA, he can also share about that as well, because he has complained a lot and he has also informed us. He has been on the media as well, exposing, you know, the waste, the sewer leaking, you know, into the streams, into the estuary and so forth. So he would be better placed to actually elaborate on that. Yeah,
David, that would be great if you are willing to just elaborate a little bit upon those spills into the estuaries, please.
Yes, okay. Thanks, Mr. Brian F. Brian F. Is it?
No, it's Philip Owen. Philip Owen. Yeah.
Philip Owen. Thanks. Actually, it's not only all the estuaries. It's also the dams inland that are contaminated with sewer due to the lack of service delivery and actually working on the infrastructures. So these are some of the problems that we are faced with. With the stealing and looting that's going, and local government is also in cahoots with all the stealing and looting. They are not there to actually do the remedial work. That is why we are faced with this problem. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you, David. Yeah.
Loud and clear.
Yeah. So these are some of the problems that we are faced with. Now you must know most of the estuaries running south and north of Durban is contaminated with sewer, and you have also got this water that's contaminated, and I think there's something that's called E. coli or something.
Oh,
in the water, and if you step in that water with an open wound, a couple of days later, you're going to get maggots coming out of that open wound. So it's quite a dangerous factor. And, you know.
Is that the Nkomazi area?
Pardon?
Is that in Nkomazi?
Nkomazi, we have got most of the estuaries, most of it. The Illovo River, the Caribbean River, the Amkubaba River, Nkomazi River. But Nkomazi River is not so bad because the mouth is open all the time. Then you have got the Mshlongwane, that's bad. You have got the Black Rocks River, that's bad. And you have got the Scottsboro River, that's very, very bad as well. So going south, it's the same thing. Even the Durban Harbour, it's contaminated very, very bad with the sewer. And I'm not sure. That's why I say we need to bring the government or the MPs and, you know, actually apply pressure on them.
Yeah.
It's a similar thing that you made a statement about nuclear. Now you're talking about nuclear power plants. Even when they kick off with that, you're going to loot and steal most of the funds that's there allocated for that. And you won't get this thing up and going.
Yeah.
So that's the problem is the looting and stealing. That's we need to draw the line. It needs to stop. And we need to set structures in place where we can get everything up and going once again. Otherwise, we got big problems in our hands.
Yeah.
Let alone that even the plastic pollution is causing total destruction in our marine life, and you can name it. It's all over the place, plastic as well. So basically, we need to work around these, and we need to work hard.
Yeah. I heard from that the government has spent almost 500 billion on that Maduri and Kusile power, coal-fired power stations. That's a lot of money, I just want to ask you, these disposable diapers, because that's a huge problem in our environment here in Mpumalanga, where there's not proper waste removal services. So many people, because they're so convenient, obviously the people want to use those diapers, disposable diapers, but if they don't know where to dispose of it, often they end up in, people just throw them down the bridge into the river. So there's a lot of our rivers and our environment that's contaminated with old, diapers, disposable diapers. And I do believe that, that's a new kind of problem that municipalities are struggling with. And I believe that there's a lot of that responsibility that actually lies at the doors of the people that produce these disposable diapers, because they've got the capacity to bring them into this most rural areas and sell them and make a profit there. But they don't take care of the whole life cycle of that product, the disposable diaper. I understand that in South Africa we use more than 3.5 billion disposable diapers annually. So, and of course it's a problem everywhere, even if they do become disposed in the right way, where they remove to a landfill. If the landfill is not lined, it's a problem for future generations, But yeah, do you have that problem with disposable diapers there in KZN as well?
Yes, just let me just come in there quickly, right? Yeah, even if you look, that's also becoming a problematic issue here in KZN as well. But this is also a lack of education. That's coming from the health departments, because these guys in the health departments, they just sit there. Whenever you phone them, they're meetings, but it's just about them and meetings. They used to go out to those rural areas and educate those communities and take it up from there one step at a time. You need to educate them as to how to get rid of these disposable diapers and even plastic as well. So in that way, we'll be a cleaner and a healthier environment than being dumped all over the place.
Exactly.
So
I think. Thanks, David. Just to add on what Naika has said, Philip. I think the issue of cradle to grave as well is very important, because it's very important. Companies that produce these diapers, they should be held accountable, because at the end of the day, cradle to grave is important, because you produce something, you must be responsible. Same like Coca-Cola, for example. Because we find like the Coca-Cola bottles floating on our rivers, on our dams, on our ocean, because the producers are not held accountable. The diaper producers as well, they need to have a buyback system. At one stage, if I'm not mistaken, the buyback system was sort of like something that was announced, but I'm not sure what happened to the buyback system of the diapers. Because why was that so? Because there was a big push from civil society saying, no, this is definitely unacceptable. The diapers are killing our ocean, killing our environment, killing our ocean species. That industry needs to be held accountable. But I think even the government as well, just to touch on what David spoke about, the issue of the government as well, I think they must be pressure put on government, because they themselves, they are lacking the political will to ensure that the producer are held accountable in terms of ensuring that they really, this buyback system is really a meaningful buyback system. Because example, if my little one, she's releasing herself, and then basically there's maybe 10 diapers in the house, obviously they will be stinking. I won't leave it for 10 diapers. At least maybe once they are 3 or 4, there must be some place where they must buy back. And then what they do with it, that's their baby. That's no more my baby shit on the diaper, but it's no more my baby as to what needs to be done with that diaper. And then they need to buy it back from me. So definitely what Mr. Naika was talking about, I fully agree.
I read in the World Health Organization, when their guidelines with regards to diapering is to say that you should not just dispose of a diaper just like that. You must first rinse the poo out of it, before you can
impossible
throw it away. That's impossible.
Impossible.
But again, there's friends of mine that used a method of no diapering. There's a name for it, but yeah, they were just very attentive of the baby, and whenever she would give, or he would give small signals when he wants to relieve himself, and they would, by carefully noticing, they would pick up on these signals and then take him to the appropriate place. No, and I think again, of indigenous knowledge systems, because in our great grandparents or grandparents even, or parents even, maybe didn't use disposable diapers, and we were all fine because of it. But yeah, I agree strongly. Cradle to grave, these organizations, Kimberly Clark, Procter and Gamble, they are making billions, especially now during this time of COVID, So they should take real responsibility for the health of the people which they claim to promote and care about, by just allowing their products to pollute our environment and our waterways. It's just not right. Just as maybe a last question, Bongani, to you and your organization in your dealings with government. Do you deal with government often? I'm sure you do. How approachable do you find your local government or the government agencies that you deal with? Are they taking you serious? Do they appreciate you for the massive resource that you are to them?
I think when it comes to government, we like torture them. We like the terrorists to them, because we just surprise them. We just storm their offices unannounced. We don't make appointments. We don't believe in making appointments to them in particular, because they are public servants. So basically, I think a few of them do acknowledge and grateful for the work we do, as much as they will tell us anonymously, or on the side. But most of them, we're really a pain in the neck for them, because we always get them, off their comfort zone to say, we need you'll need to be here, this is what's happening, and we're exposing them as well in the media. So they don't like to be exposed, and they don't like to be given tasks, especially by communities. But I think now for them, they understand us, that we're not just community, but we are a key stakeholder, in making that or ensuring the environmental justice and human rights in our communities. So some of them, they do recognize us as a key stakeholder, and some, they still have this attitude of, dragging their feet whenever we call them, or, whenever we want them to present themselves.
But
accidents, So we see ourselves as key role players or key stakeholders, and we we get them off their backsides, because we believe that you know, they going to the toilets or they visit the toilet because of us, you know, the taxpayers' money. So they need to get their act together, you know, they need to do what they really, hired to do. So they don't like it, yeah, they don't like it. But we just randomly decide to storm the offices. Like last week, myself and one colleague of mine, we're driving past the South Basin office, and we thought of a lot of issues that are still that they need to attend to as officials. I just drove the car into the parking lot, and then we just stormed the offices. We just demanded to be seen by the top manager of that office. You know, the lady was there. And then she said, "Hey, gentlemen, gentlemen, hey, Bongani, I haven't seen you for a while." And your colleague, I said, "Yeah." I said, "We're here because of ABCD. It was an issue of illegal truck parking in different areas not designated for truck sports, truck parking, and illegal truck, tankers dumping toxic waste in areas illegally." So basically, and the Chinese as well. There's another area where in the Jacobs area where the Chinese are just building without actually going in the proper routes in terms of looking at the Department of Planning in eThekwini. They just build whatever they're building there. So yeah, so we went in the office, we stormed there, we started asking them one question after another to say, what's happening, what's the latest, how far have you all gone to in resolving this issue and so forth. So they were not happy, but we were there. They needed to respond to us.
Yeah, and I remind myself, I keep on, thinking that they are our brothers and sisters, and in a way they are representative, or they should be a representative of our society, and again, education, it's so important, and spreading awareness, generating information, and generating the data, it's so critically important. So thanks for your passion, Bongani. And thanks for, I've known you for quite a long time. I've met you many years ago.
Yeah,
we really appreciate the work that you do, and your enthusiasm when demonstrated tonight here by staying on this call even over our time. So I'm gonna, if you have any more final comments, just also to say thanks, David, for your comments. It was nice that you joined us here. I'm sorry that you joined it late, but I mean, you can watch it on YouTube tomorrow if you want.
Yeah.
But, to say that for the people that maybe would be watching it on Facebook at some stage, that all of these different Earth Matters interviews are on the Geosphere Earth Matters YouTube channel. So people can just go to YouTube / Geosphere Africa, and they will find all the, I think we've done 13 or 14 now. So, but yes, Bongani, this was a nice chat. I hope we can do it again at some stage in the future.
Definitely.
Maybe we can have some panel discussion. That would also be nice.
Definitely.
Some final thoughts from you?
I would like to thank you, Comrade Philip, for the opportunity. It's always good to share, and especially with you. Whenever I see you, even if I see your email, I always think of Wally, the three of us. So you're quite correct. We come a long way, and and you took good care of us when we're that side, in your place, in your property. So I think
visit again.
Definitely. The struggle continues. So I think whatever we've shared today, people will gain, and then this will help them, and then basically we also like to learn as well from other people as well. So my comrade David Naika here as well is one of the most active guy around. Sakti Psycho is one of the biggest paper and pulp industry company in South. In South and Komas. So he's our go-to person. So I do apologize for sending the link to him late. I totally forgot of thinking of sending the link to him. But when I thought of that, immediately he joined us because he's one active person as well.
Great.
But thank you very much,
I was thinking
Comrade
I
Philip.
ask you, I'm ask you now to please, if you can forward me his email address. And David, if you don't mind, then I'll put you on our email mailing list. Then you'll get notifications of any such future talks, and maybe we can even have a talk ourselves. You know. So yeah.
Okay. Thanks once again.
So,
yeah, you can.
Cool.
So
yeah, I'll send you David's email address. Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, Bongani.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man.
No, thanks very much.
Have a nice
Cheers,
day,
guys.
and thank you very much for
Thanks.
staying.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.